In order to understand people better, you must look at things from their perspective. Dale Carnegie, in his famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he mentions that. And one fine evening when I read that quote, I was taken aback. I said, this is the step that I need within my personal development. So I said, I'm taking a step forward. And I tried implementing that within my life. But it didn't work out for me. I said, what am I doing wrong? I tried analyzing it, and with time I realized instead of taking a step forward, I had to take a step back. Instead of trying to understand others, I first had to understand myself. And that's when I came across the concept of MBTI, also known as Myers-Briggs Personality Type, or Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Now you can ask me about, again with some weird name, I'm going to explain it to you, don't worry. Myers-Briggs Personality Type constitutes of 16 different personalities. One of them is going to be yours. Watch out. So, how does this thing work? It basically shows you what are your cognitive functions. What is your main method of preference? What is your main method of working? Which is your way of moving on with life? And it covers 4 different preference pairs. I don't like to call it categories. Let's call it preference pairs. All right? Let's dive right into it. So, the first one is based on how you gain your energy. Now, these 2 words that you're looking at here is something that's usually very stereotyped. When I was making my presentation, I wrote up introvert. I saw this guy down, not talking, quiet, shy. I myself am an introvert and I'm here on this stage. But an introvert basically says, look, I have the energy for myself. I'm going to direct it inwards. I'm going to direct it to myself, and that will leave me time to get my thoughts together. The alone time will energize me. Whereas an extrovert says, cool, I have a different way of working. An extrovert says, look, you direct your energy inwards, I direct my energy outwards. When I have a long day of work, what I prefer is being social, directing the energy outwards. The energy then bounces back to myself, leaving me more energized. So, an introvert gains energy by spending their time alone and getting that energy by directing it towards themselves. Extrovert says, look, I have energy, I'll direct it outwards, it will bounce back towards me. Great. Now, you know how you gain your energy. How do you take information? How are you listening to me right now? So there's 2 different kinds of people here. All right? An intuitive like myself says, look, I have all the information that I need. It's about psychology. It's about personalities. What is all the information that I have pertaining to this topic? Let me collect them, piece them together, and form a bigger picture. Whereas a sensor says, no, that's not my preference. A sensor says, look, I'm listening to Abbas just as I am. I'm being practical. I have all the resources that I need currently, and I'm only listening to him practically. Let's focus on the details. Let's not gather any information together. Let's be practical. Let's be in the now, and let's focus on the details. Now, you've gained information. How do you present it towards the outside world? Now, this is a very interesting story. So I'm a person who loves taking up responsibilities. And when I take up a project, I have standards. And most of my friends that know me, they will vouch for it. So I said, look, I have standards. I'm going to make sure that it remains to the level that I want it to be in. So I had 2 girls working with me with the project. Now, we'll name girl A, girl Z. All right? Now, the project's starting. And I said, I'm going to make sure motivational levels are high. I'm going to make sure everyone feels included. And I'm going to make sure everyone feels like they're part of the team. Right? That's what a leader does. Now, I go up to girl A. I said, hey, I'm so proud of the fact that you've taken this step. I am so amazed by your work and the fact that you've just started. And I'm sure you will keep on going the same way. This is what girl A does. Exactly. And I'm weirded out as well. I'm like, what's going on? And she tells me, either your standards are too low, or you don't know what we're doing here. Because I have just started the work. How are you complimenting me right now? Well, there's no proof for it. It just feels like you're forcing the compliment onto me, and I do not feel appreciated like that. Youch. Like, okay, sorry for being nice, and I left. Next time, don't be nice, be rude. No, okay, that's not the case. But what I decided was, look, girl A, done, messed it up. I have girl Z now. She is the backbone of my project. I don't want to mess that up. So this is what I did. Go up to girl Z. Exactly, I did nothing. I just stood there. And she was obviously like, can I help you? I said, nope, do your job. I'm not interfering, But as time went forward, I realized girl A, she told me not to compliment her, let her do her job. Her productivity started going upwards. Wow. Let people be the way they are. Girl Z, she was the backbone of my project. Even if girl A does all the work, girl Z is the backbone. She's the one who will lead it. Her productivity started taking a hit. And I said, well, this is not the standard that I want. I woke up, gathered up the courage, go up to girl Z, and I said, hey, can I ask you a question? Without you killing me, obviously, And she tells me yes. And I said, I've noticed that your productivity has taken a decline. It's going lower. Don't kill me. But I wish there's something I can do to make it better. You know what she gave me as a response? Abbas, I did not feel acknowledged enough. I did not feel like I was part of the team. You did not compliment me enough. And this was more confusing than my maths exam. Because what is this? I go and compliment someone, they tell me to back off. I go up to someone, not compliment them. I'm still told off. What do I do? But that's when it hit me. That's when I realized there's two different kinds of preferences that we have. Girl A, what does she prefer? Logic, rationality, things that makes sense. So if somebody is complimenting her, she'll go, okay, why is this happening? Okay, because I did X, Y, Z, and I deserve the compliment for it. But she is a thinker, and she's more of a rational person. If we go up to girl Z, you did the same thing with her, you saw how much of a disaster that was. But what girl Z says, look, I want to value harmony. I want to value motivational levels. I want to maintain a very peaceful environment for myself, so I can feel like I'm part of the team. So when you compliment me, it encourages me to do more. When you make me feel like I'm part of the team, it makes me want to do more. And that's how things come into play. So obviously, thank God, the revelation came, I implemented, and it worked out for me. So, in simple terms, thinker prefers rationality, logic, things that make sense. I can see some of the faces change here. Now it makes sense, right? It's not a problem within a person. It's just a preference. And a feeler says, look, I'll value harmony, I'll value feelings, and I'll value people being around me in a nice way. And just because you're rational or just because you're a feeler does not mean you cannot have the other. In times, you'll have to implement it, just like my story. Now, you've gained your energy, you've taken information, you've presented it to the outside world. Now, how do you go about with your day-to-day life, right? Now, a judging type within the MBTI, what does it mean? It does not mean literally judging. No, it means the person prefers a to-do list. A person prefers to have a task list. Or a person like me who prefers to have a whole Google Calendar for the day, for the week, for the month, goes up to 3 months or even a year. I can see some of the face changing. I'm not psychotic, I'm normal. But what matters here is I have also done, and I'm sure most of you have as well, for those of you who prefer judging, I have written down tasks on my to-do list that I have already done just to check them off, just to feel better. Some of you have, I know, you can't lie to me. Now, a judging type, simple says, you have a Google Calendar. You have a whole to-do list, you prefer things to be in order, and I like to know what is coming up next. And then we have the perceiving types. Most of my friends are perceiving types. You know what they tell me? I can see them smiling. You know what they tell me? You have a Google Calendar? You have a to-do list? I prefer to let life surprise me. I prefer to take things as they come. And I'm feeling anxious as I say that, by the way. I prefer to be spontaneous. I prefer to just go with the flow. Wow, right? Now, in simple terms, that's what it means. You have a preference. But I can see them laughing there. But what matters here is a perceiving type says, look, you give me a plan, you keep me in control, I won't be able to be productive. But go to a judging type like myself. Remove my Google Calendar on my laptop, I have it on my phone. Remove it on my phone, I have it on my iPad. I cannot work without a plan. And just because you prefer having a plan does not mean you cannot go with the flow. There'll be situations in life where you'll have to just move forward with things as they come. And for perceiving types, by the way, you do not get out of planning. You have to plan to a certain extent of your life. Now, we've covered all 4 different aspects. Let's type ourselves, shall we? So, you'll get more information if you just go on Google, write 16 personalities, and take a test. But for a broader view, let's take it together, shall we? If you think you're an extrovert, you take the letter E. You prefer energy going outwards. You think you're an introvert, you take the letter I. Okay? Now, you feel you are a practical person, you prefer focusing on the details, you will take the letter S, which is for sensor. You feel you're more of an intuitive person like myself. Connecting the dots together, I take information by putting them together. You take the letter N. All right, because we used I in introvert. You feel like you're more of a rational person, you prefer things that make sense. All right, you take the letter T, which is for thinker. If you feel like you're more inclined towards feelings, harmony, and emotions, you take the letter F, which is for feeler. And finally, if you have my favorite, I envy you, perceiving type, take the letter P. And finally, if you think you're more of an organized person, thank God, like me, take the letter J. So, my type is INTJ. I'm introverted, I'm an intuitive, I'm a thinker, and I'm a judging type. What is yours? So, I'll prove that to you with an example, right? I want all of you to take your hands forward like this. All right? Now, some of you didn't even realize you have a preference. Some of you put your right hand forward, some of you put your left. See? So now, put your other hand on top of it. On my count, you will start clapping, and you won't stop until I tell you to. All right? On my count, 3, 2, 1, clap. Keep on clapping. It's a cheap way to ask for applause. Thank you so much.